Meeting to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231. Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Call the roll, please.
Laura Grauman. Donald Johnson.
Here.
Bruce McCracken.
Here.
Alan Rich.
Here.
Robert Shepard.
Here.
Anthony Caldwell.
Here.
Gary Rosenthal.
Here.
Joel Reese. Cheryl Gallo asked to be excused. Chairman Thomas.
Here. Minutes of the regular meeting, April 5th, 2018. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to accept.
And,
Second.
okay.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Robert Shepard.
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Under the resolutions section, Ananda Mandir, ZBA 15-00024.
I move to accept.
Second.
Bruce McCracken.
Before we vote, I want to make a comment concerning the resolution, so it's at least in the record. I think the attempt to make the board's position and clarify things in this resolution, from my point of view, turned out pretty well. I have one concern over the use of the word members throughout the ordinance. I have that concern because this organization continues to advertise on an internet website people paying $50 and becoming a member. I expect members to correct me if I'm not accurate, all right? I think it is the board's intention that in this resolution, member refers to someone who is basically a practicing participant in the religious activities of the facility, not someone who was solicited to pay $50 for a membership fee to use a banquet hall that's not permitted to be used by that person. So I just want to make sure that publicly or on the record, our intention is made clear in what we mean by members. Is that the heart of the whole issues that we've been discussing over the last few months?
I'm in agreement as well. When I saw this resolution and read it over, I went back and I watched the two episodes in which the testimony was taken, and certainly that was the way it was presented. I can also say that the way in which this resolution is written matches all of the concerns that were expressed in the meeting. So I'm a little troubled by the idea that after this was presented as a religious endeavor, that they are now advertising on the internet that for $50 you can become a member, and it makes it sound like it's more of a social club, and that certainly was not the intention of this board.
There's no other comments? You can.
But I think the resolution makes all of that very clear. Again, that it is approved as a religious place of worship and cultural center and needs to be used as such. Any intention on the applicant's part to use it as a banquet facility or any type of commercial enterprise will be the subject of zoning violations and summonses.
Anything else? Poll the board.
Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Robert Shepard.
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Gill Petroleum, ZBA 17-00008.
Move it.
Give a second.
Second.
Okay.
Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Oops, sorry, Laura Grauman.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Robert Shepard.
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. SRI Romandra Mission Incorporated, ZBA 17-00017. We need a motion.
Accept.
Second.
I'll second.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
and Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Francis E. Parker Memorial Home, ZBA 18-00001.
I'll move.
A second.
Second.
Okay. Alan Rich,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
and Chairman Thomas.
Marriott Callahan and Blair in the discussion section.
Excuse me.
One in New Jersey Chinese Community Center, a voucher for $171. Is there a motion to, all in favor?
Favor.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried, all right. Extension of approval, New Jersey Tabernacle, ZBA 13-00015. We have
Move to accept.
representation for that?
Second.
Good evening. Peter Lake, appearing on behalf of New Jersey Tabernacle.
Peter was walking up there.
This application was approved by the board in 2013. Under the municipal land use law, we have a right to...
Excuse me.
Are you picking up?
You have to carry that issue for Singh first before we start, if you don't mind. Singh has been carried.
Well, I was going to do that after we
Oh, okay.
do the,
Okay. We received approval in
I don't
2013.
think, are you picking him up on the,
Are you picking him up?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Anyway, we're requesting, we're entitled to 3 one-year extensions. This would be our last extension. The church is still in the process of gathering funds, and hopefully they will be able to move forward to construct the church sometime this year. They're working on it. I'm not 100% certain it will happen, but it may happen, so we're just requesting extension so that if the funds are generated, we can go forward on that approval.
comments, discussion, questions, or motions?
To approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay, go.
Laura Groneman, Donald Johnson,
Yes.
Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
and Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Surinder and Fano Singe, ZBA 17-00020. This hearing is for a hardship variance in which the applicant is seeking a variance due to his going 1,070 square feet over previously approved impervious coverage at 3 Buell Street, Block 83, Lot 1.04 in the R20 zone. That's carried from May 3rd, and it's going to be carried again, correct? Yes. Oh,
5th.
need the updated agenda, carried to July 5th with no further notification. Ketan Patel, ZBA 18-00005, hardship variance in which the applicant is seeking a variance to construct a 25 by 30-foot paver patio, 15 Colgate Court, Somerset, Block 101, Lot 87 in the R10 zone. And we have, want to come up and take the mic? And you're going to be representing yourself? Swear you in?
The mic needs to be put on somehow.
That's correct? Yes, that's me.
Okay, if you could raise your right hand for me. You swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Correct.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, please.
This is Ketan B. Patel, 15 Colgate Court, Somerset, New Jersey, 08873.
Would explain a brief overview, give us a brief overview of what you want to do.
Yeah, so I live in 15 Colgate Court, Somerset, New Jersey. My development, when I bought the house and the new construction, I was not aware of the zoning limitations on doing a patio or any, backyard or side yard or front yard type of improvements in terms of, making your house look a little prettier or at least usable. I live on a cul-de-sac, and my house is on what we call a pizza slice. So the front is like the crust, and the back is like the part of the slice in the beginning. So, and I have an easement on my property, so a lot of the property is like a hill, so only a portion of my property I could use to enjoy a barbecue or whatnot. And I'm looking to do a patio in that section to, have a better quality of life for me and my kids, because my kids cannot play in that backyard because it's a hill. They have to play in the cul-de-sac. Hence, I bought the cul-de-sac, and I have cameras to watch them when they're playing basketball and whatnot. So I just want to do a simple patio to, enjoy a little bit of the outdoors in the summer. That's all.
I'm looking at your marked up map survey, and I can't tell how this patio impacts whatever is next to you. What have you got behind your property?
Yeah, so we live in a 27-house home development.
Uh-huh.
It's an open land. No one has fences up. So only one property has a fence up, which they already have a patio in there. I'm not sure if they're been approved or not through the whole board process. I will not go there. I'm not
No,
gonna
but behind your property.
behind me, it's just grass.
Open, so
It's
you're
grass.
not interfering with any.
I'm not interfering with anyone.
Okay, what about to the side of you?
It's my property, because remember I told you I'm in a pizza slice, so the side of the property is huger or larger than my back. I have no property in the back. The only piece of property that could do a patio is what I'm going to be exhausting. So the idea is to put a little bit of a patio with a few trees to get a little privacy, and that's pretty much it.
And you've discussed this with your neighbors, or you've given them notice?
My neighbor already has a patio in his back. I don't know if he got a permit or not.
Yes, he did.
I did the 25 people that I had to get that clearance through.
The question is actually a different question. Did you send them a notice?
Yeah, certified mail went through. I spoke to all of them to get their buy-in, and they were all comfortable with it.
Any questions, comments? Open to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to make a statement or ask a question about this application? If not, we'll close and motion.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Wait,
You gotta wait till we vote.
Okay, haven't voted yet. I have a question.
Don't thank us yet.
My question is that, how many houses, about 15 houses, all backing onto each other, right?
Yes, correct.
And
There's
you basically-
27 homes, so there's about 10 on Churchill, and the remaining on a Colgate. I live on the cul-de-sac. I'm literally facing the National Guard, if you know the neighborhood.
No, I was there, I just
Yeah.
drove by your house.
Yeah, so literally, I'm secluded, sort of.
Yeah. Now, the question I have is that they didn't put any decks in, or they didn't put any, there was no space for anybody, it doesn't look like, to have.
Well, this,
We do have a little bit of a deck, don't get me wrong. It's just, it's a
Steps,
deck. Yeah,
steps
it's just like probably like a maybe like a 6 by 4 foot deck. That's not usable. I mean, in this day and age, to put a barbecue together, it's still close to the house. You don't want a fire or anything like that,
Yeah.
when the house was built, it was basically built out to the max. 30% impervious is permitted, and it was built out to 9.97. And there were some variances granted for setbacks. So,
Yeah.
it was built out to the max, so then when he wants to have a patio, he's above it. That's simply the fact of the matter before you.
Okay.
any other questions?
Laura Grauman,
Yes.
Donald Johnson?
Not yet.
Only after we vote.
We all have to say yes first.
Donald Johnson?
Yes.
Bruce McCracken?
Yes.
Alan Rich?
Yes.
Robert Shepherd?
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes, now it's,
Now you can.
good luck with it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the Korean Baptist Church of America, ZBA 18-00002, site plan with a D3 use and sign variance in which the applicant seeking to construct a one-story addition, modify walkways, addition to a parking lot, minor grading, and a new sign at 46 Livingston Avenue, Block 68, Lot 4, in the R10 zone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. This application has been filed on behalf of the church, which is an existing house of worship located between Livingston and Elm. It actually has frontage on 2 streets. At the present time, there are 3 existing structures on the property, one being the sanctuary house of worship, the other was the rectory, and the third was a building that was a garage or an outbuilding, which is being used for youth classes. This application is to connect the sanctuary building with the rectory. The building that was the rectory for many years is not being occupied by the pastor, and it is going to be converted to offices and classrooms. And the addition that we are, the connection that we are constructing is to provide a connection between the 2 buildings, to provide restrooms and a small little kitchen. I do have 3 witnesses. I have the assistant pastor who will be testifying, as well as Mr. Merrick, who is a professional planner and land surveyor and prepared the plans that are before the board this evening, and also Mr. Yarrington, our architect. Also, for the record, we were required, because of the location of the subject property, to appear before the Historic Committee. We were actually required to go there twice. We made 2 appearances. They, in fact, did approve or recommend. They don't have a power to approve, but they recommended approval of this project. I don't know if there was a memorandum issued, but it was recommended for approval. Having said that, I will call Assistant Pastor Joshua Byam.
For the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
State your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record, please.
Joshua Byun. Last name is B-Y-U-N. Address 249 Luton Way, Somerset, New Jersey, 08873.
Be seated. Joshua, you're the assistant pastor at the church?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when did the church acquire the property?
About 3 years back.
You want to put that mic
Yes,
close?
sorry. Sorry.
Okay. And after acquiring the property, you started to conduct religious services, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you heard my opening statement concerning the 3 buildings on the property. One of the buildings was, when it was occupied by the former church, was a rectory for the pastor, and we're seeking to basically convert that into offices. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And to connect the sanctuary with the rectory.
With the sanctuary, yes, sir.
Okay. At the present time, how often do you conduct services?
We have services on Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon, and we have services on Wednesday night.
And other than that, there are no other services that take place at the church. Is that correct?
There's no official services that go on.
Okay. And how many members do you have in the congregation?
Including the children, we have about 90 members.
And has the congregation grown or stayed the same since you occupied this building?
We've stayed about the same.
Okay. If the board were to grant the approval, would any of the religious services or the uses on the property change? In other words, you'll still have the services on Sunday and Wednesday. You're not adding any services or doing anything different other than repurposing the space. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We're simply renovating for the purpose of not really expanding growth, but rather to facilitate the buildings better. So,
Okay. At the present time, in the sanctuary, you have the main floor is where you conduct your services on Sunday,
yes, sir.
and also there is a basement.
There's a basement.
Okay, and that is used for fellowship.
It's used for fellowship directly following the services.
Okay, and since you don't have any classrooms now, how do the children get their education? What do you do now that you don't have classrooms?
We use that youth building to the side, and we don't have too many children, so we use what we have.
Okay, but obviously, if you move into the new building, you can provide classrooms and it'd be more functional.
It would.
Yeah, and besides yourself, are there any other operators or pastors that work at the church?
Yes, we have our senior pastor who has just the two of us.
Okay, and when we say we're creating offices in the rectory, that's for you and the senior pastor?
Yes, sir.
You have no employees or anything else like that?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Any board questions?
When you were asked about the services, you said, well, those are the official services. Are there any unofficial services?
Nothing that's really that goes on a weekly basis, but we might have seasonal revival services or things like that. But it's not set services that we would conduct on a weekly or monthly.
How often would those occur?
Usually once or twice a year at most.
Okay.
Okay, we'll open to the public. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question concerning this application? Come on up to the podium. This is simply a time to question the testimony that you just heard, not a statement.
Peter, can you put the mic back up just so they can talk?
Okay. I live in,
Please.
State your name and give us your...
my name is Patricia Love. Do you want my address? Actually, my official address is 393 Canal Road, but I also have a driveway that's at 20 Elm Street that abuts the one of the streets that's potentially affected by this project. And the thing about Elm Street is it's a really old street in an old village.
You're moving into the, I'm giving a statement.
Oh, I see.
What this
what's
part
the
of the
impact?
hearing is for you to ask questions concerning his testimony.
What impact would there be on the traffic flow during immediately before, immediately after
Really not
services?
his,
So we'll explain. They're going to present a bunch of different people.
Okay.
Right now, they're presenting the pastor's, and he's explaining his testimony. If you have questions about what he just said, this is the time to do that. Then they're going to have the engineer, did they send an architect? Architect. And then at the end, you'll be able to provide comments, over your overall statements. But this is kind of like a trial or quasi-judicial thing. With, they present testimony, we ask them questions, you have the opportunity to ask them questions. Whatever he just said, if you have questions about other things, it'll probably come later, you can ask.
anyone else like to question the witness on his testimony?
I think there will be discussion about traffic, but you'll be able to ask a question.
We'll close for the, someone else want to? Right.
Hello.
State your name, spell your last name, and give us your address, please.
Okay. It's Vincent Nicotra, Nicotra,
and I'm on 39 Franklin, and I also have property front on Livingston there. So you guys have been great neighbors. I'll just start with that. Just for the sake of manners, I wanted to say you guys have been great neighbors. My only question with your testimony and that would require your expertise is what plans is there for like expansion or growth of the group? Is there any like
our church began in Metuchen, Edison area, where there's a higher Asian population. And while we were searching for a church building, we moved to Somerset. And Somerset isn't really we don't really have a big Asian population here. So it's more for our members that we currently have in the families rather than expansion, because it just doesn't have, I mean, we do want to reach people, but it's not a highly Asian populated area. So.
And sir, if you could just clarify, because I think this might relate to the first person's question as well. The amount of worship area is not changing, is that correct?
It's not, no.
So you have some worship area in the basement that's existing. You have a children's chapel, correct?
It's the size of a classroom.
Okay, size of a classroom.
Yes.
And then you have one on the main floor of the chapel, or the sanctuary.
Yes, sir.
So can you just, I know you indicated before, but just, can you just describe briefly the nature of it? So there's a small addition. Kind of just quickly why, what's in there and why you're doing it from your perspective, and to what degree will this bring in additional members or not?
Yes, I mean, honestly, what this construction does is it connects the two buildings that we're going to use for classrooms and the main place of worship, and it will provide a larger restroom on the addition that we'll build, and it will cause a hallway for them to be able to function more fluently without going outside between the classrooms and the sanctuary. So it doesn't really add any worship space per se. It is what it is already, but it simply provides a lobby area and bigger restrooms and a place to for the people to be able to travel between the two buildings without going outside.
Thank you.
Okay, your name and address?
Do I press something? My name is Michelle Yusko. I live at 39 Livingston Avenue. I'm right across the street from the property, and I second Vince's statement. You're great neighbors, and I enjoy living across the street. Now, since I've been there, it seems to me, and this is just, my observation, it seems like you have a relatively large property for a relatively small congregation. So I'm just wondering, I guess my concern would be, do you envision that property being utilized for any other purpose, for example, a rental of the fellowship hall, or, allowing somebody else to utilize the classrooms, which would bring another population into the neighborhood?
We're not planning on renting our facility to anybody else. The reason for the space is because of the makeup of our church. It's a Korean American church, which means part of our older members only speak Korean, and our younger members only speak English. So it provides, we're in need of more space so that they could worship in two separate places, but they're one family, so they still come to church together, but it's still, because of the language barrier, it requires them to worship in different locations.
Okay, but it's still just going to be your population. There's not going to be...
Yeah, we're not planning on renting or anything like that. So.
Any other questions?
My name is Art Toto, last name T-O-T-O. I own the property at 45 Franklin Street, and I have a question under the permitted use with the zoning. Could this facility be used for daycare?
We're not planning on it, but...
Well, planning, my question is, could it be?
Oh, I'm not sure about the zoning.
Well, then I would ask the board to address that question, or Mr. Lampert.
I would guess if they had wanted to use it for daycare, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but I believe it would be permitted. But I also believe we probably would have to come back here and make application for approval for that use, because the only use we have now is for the house of worship and the classrooms for the religious services on Sunday.
What I'll say is generally, the law is rather permissive as to what places of worship may have as accessory uses, and daycare is one of those things that are commonly accessory to places of worship. But the applicant is here before the board for a number of variances, and if the board wanted to, and I think the board has, as part of an application, indicated no daycare facilities, because there are site plan ramifications of if you have a daycare facility. So the board, if you chose, could impose that as a condition, and they would have to come back to the board if they ever wanted to do that.
Okay, so my understanding is that it could be used for a daycare center at some point, correct?
I think in a general sense, in terms of a general zoning thing, that you can, as part of zoning, if you have a house and things that are customarily accessory to a house, you can have a garage, you could have a storage, but as things that are customarily accessory to a place of worship, daycare is one of those things that is commonly accessory to a place of worship. But that's not what the applicant is proposing here, and as I just indicated, since they are asking for variances, they are asking for site plan approval, that could be an appropriate condition that the board imposes. And if they wanted to have one, they would have to come back.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I'll take it as a yes. Also, I have a question with regard to parking and the number of parishioners or members or in their congregation. How many cars would there be at any particular time during their services?
On Sunday, you have two services, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Question.
The first service on Sunday is at what time?
It's at 11 a.m.
Okay. And what's the average attendance at that service?
I think that's the only service where we would have about 90 people.
Okay. And you've been getting 90 people since, you started operating at this facility, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you have, and we'll get into it with the engineer later, but you have two areas for parking, one on one side of the property and one on the other side of the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the parishioners, when they come to worship for that 11 o'clock service, park in those parking lots, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had a problem with not having adequate parking in those parking lots?
No, not that I remember.
Okay. Now, your 2:30 service, is 2:30 in the afternoon is your other service?
Yes.
And how many people usually attend that?
I think we dropped down to about 40.
Okay. And again, with all the parking spaces you have no problem providing parking for those 40 people, correct?
No.
Okay. And then you have a Bible class on Wednesday night?
Yes.
Okay. And what time is that Bible class?
8 o'clock.
And how many people generally attend that?
I think we have about 40 people on Wednesday nights.
Okay.
Too.
And again, there's more than adequate parking in your parking lot for those people?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now I'm confused. You said at the beginning you had 90 members roughly.
Yes.
Right? So you said your 11 a.m. was 90 members.
Yes.
And now the next one is 40?
Mm-hmm.
And the next one is 40 again?
Oh, no, what it is it's the same people.
Oh, the same people are coming back.
It's, they stay until 2:30. They kind of stay around until 2:30. It's, usually everybody tries to come because we moved from, about a 30-minute distance. They usually, they're not from Somerset, so they come to the 11 o'clock service. Whoever stays, they stay for the afternoon service and things like that. So.
Any other questions?
Not for me, not anyone else?
You want to ask a question, come up to the podium and the mic.
On up.
I have a question about the signage. Would that be
Hey,
now
you-
or later?
We're only dealing with his testimony. He's not a signed person.
Okay, great.
Right.
So later.
Later. Any other questions? And we'll close to the public for now, and then you have another witness.
Mr. Yarrington?
I don't know, but he's giving me a...
Thought I was having a detached retina problem there for a second.
Mr. Yarrington, if I could swear you in real quick?
Yes.
Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record.
Sure. Mark Yarrington, Y-A-R-R-I-N-G-T-O-N, 676 U.S. Highway 202 and 206, Bridgewater, New Jersey.
Great.
Mr. Yarrington, what is your occupation?
I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey.
Can you give the board the benefit of your educational and professional background?
Sure. Have a degree from New Jersey Institute of Technology in architecture and have been practicing as a sole proprietor for 35 years.
We're fine with it.
Thank you. And you were retained by the applicant actually some years ago after they purchased the property, correct?
That's correct.
And after they purchased the property, they have already made some renovations to the property?
That is correct. We did some renovations to the existing sanctuary building.
Okay. I think we've got the exhibits.
That's good.
Up. All right. If you can, Mr. Yarrington, the exhibit that is on the board right now is, it's getting better, is the proposed plans for the addition. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you take the board through what's there now and what we are doing so that the board and the members of the public can understand everything?
Sure. Let me just, if I may, step over here and roll my arms around a little bit here. Let's see. So over on the left side of the screen is the existing sanctuary building. And over to the right is the existing rectory building. And the shaded walls indicate some renovations to the rectory building, fairly minor, and the connecting addition from the sanctuary building to the rectory building.
Okay, now, you started out by saying that there have been some renovations to the sanctuary. When the church first purchased the property, can you give the board the orientation of the sanctuary and what was done?
Yes. Originally, thank you, Chris. Originally, the entry to the church was here, like originally 1865-ish, and in more recent years, with the altar area up toward the top of the screen. That has been internally reversed a couple of years ago so that the foyer entry area is at the back. The seating area is in here. And then if we can slide that back up, thank you, Chris. The existing worship platform is now here with the baptismal up here.
And all of the renovations to that part of the building were done with permits and were approved and have been completed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And now, if we go back to the rectory, can you briefly describe what the rectory how the rectory functioned when you first saw it, what was in the rectory.
Sure. When I first became the architect for my client, the rectory appeared to, from the prior church owner, have some offices on the first floor and had some living areas on the second floor for their pastoral team.
Okay. And can you indicate to the board what renovations we are making to the rectory, and then we'll talk about the new addition?
Sure. So in the rectory, they would like to create some children's classrooms. Those have to occur on either the first and or second floor by code because of fire issues and fire ratings. So in the case of my client, they're going to keep the children on the first floor. They're going to move their offices to the second floor, which is allowed by code. And on the third floor would be adult meeting rooms, which is also allowed by code in this type of structure.
Okay, and when the building was a rectory, did the building have a kitchen in it?
It did.
Okay, and where was the kitchen?
The kitchen currently is back at the back of the building.
Okay, and what's going to happen to that kitchen?
Yes, that kitchen, which really we call a warming kitchen, is going to relocate into the addition.
Okay.
So that the existing kitchen can become a Christian ed classroom space.
Okay. And the kitchen that we are proposing is basically a warming kitchen, so if the pastor or the assistant pastor are working, they can warm food up?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what else is going to take place in the new addition?
Okay. The other really key elements in the addition is a new entry reception area where people would enter, and barrier-free toilet rooms, which do not occur today in the structure.
Okay. And then that entry area affords the parishioners the ability to either go into the sanctuary or to the renovated rectory. Is that correct?
That's correct. So they could come from this side parking lot up the barrier-free ramp in, continue on into the sanctuary, or continue over into the current rectory structure.
Okay. You mentioned the parking lot, and we'll get into it a little more detail later, but there is parking on both sides of the property. Is that correct?
That's correct. So over here and over on this side.
Okay. And so all access now to either the sanctuary or to the rectory or to that new lobby area would all be on the same side of the building. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Rephrase the question.
For members of the congregation who are coming to worship, all of the entry points will be on the same side. They will either be entry points at the sanctuary or the new lobby area.
That's correct.
Okay. Will there be any access or entry points anywhere else to the building?
We do have the existing front entry door, which would remain as an exit, a required exit. And there are a couple of other doors out of the sanctuary.
That's in the rectory.
That's correct. Here's the rectory. The current front door is maintained as a required exit door.
And that will just be an exit door. That's not going to be a general method of ingress and egress for the parishioners.
Not to my knowledge.
Right. And the other door that is in the sanctuary is an emergency, basically, exit door?
Yes. This is a door that we installed as part of the sanctuary renovation as an exit door only.
Okay. Now, can you indicate to the board the materials, the current construction materials of both of the existing buildings and what you're going to do to match up the addition?
Yeah, so our intent is that the new materials would match the existing materials to be architecturally compatible in terms of the materials themselves, the architectural style, and the colors. So the existing two structures both have the same siding on them currently. It's a 4-inch Dutch lap siding. It is vinyl. That would be applied to the new addition as well. The roofing shingles currently today on both buildings are an asphalt dimensional shingle, sort of a charcoal blend. It's a popular term for the color. And the new addition will likewise have the charcoal blend asphalt dimensional shingles.
Okay. And Mr. Mueller has now sort of brought up the elevations of the new building. I guess very briefly, just so you could take the board through it.
Sure. So if I'm standing on Elm Street, this is the elevation I would see with the existing sanctuary to the right, the existing rectory to the left, and the proposed one-story addition connecting the two here. If we can lift the picture from Livingston Avenue, this would be the view you would see with the sanctuary that you're familiar with, the rectory that we're familiar with, and then set back closer to the Elm Street side of the property would be the connecting wing in between the two. Okay. And similarly, you have left and right side views, mostly showing the existing buildings.
And in the new addition, we are proposing some windows.
Yes, there are a small number. I think we have a total of about 10 double-hung windows, consistent with the style of windows on the existing rectory.
So everything will match as close as possible to what's there today.
That's the goal, yes.
Okay. There was a comment in one of the staff reports concerning, from Ms. Elliott, concerning the youth building. The youth building is a separate building. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
And that building is, as you're looking at this picture, to the right side of what you're seeing right now.
Yes.
And Ms. Elliott indicated that there must be a restroom facility provided, and obviously, if that is a requirement, we will provide it and comply with that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the kitchen may or may not need approval of the Board of Health. If it is a warming kitchen, it may not, but if we need approval of the Board of Health, we will obtain it. Is that correct?
What is a warming kitchen?
Basically, there's no stove. It basically is a microwave, a refrigerator, and a sink.
Okay.
We try to educate.
Doing a pretty good job.
I think all of the comments, staff comments regarding architecture we've addressed.
Are you going to summarize the proceedings before the Historic Commission?
I can do that with Mr. I actually,
it's probably a lot of architectural.
Excuse me?
I would think it's primarily architecture, right?
Well, the historic, there were two things. The Historic Commission reviewed the architecture. They had no problem with what we're proposing. What we gave to them is what you're seeing now. We also, they reviewed the sign, which we will get into momentarily. Okay. The only other recommendations of the Historic Commission, they wanted to see some plantings in the front of the, and we're calling the now Elm Street side, the front of the building. They want to see some plantings, which we will get into shortly. The other thing that they did recommend, and Mr. Mielek will go into it a little bit more detail, the parking lot basically has minimal lighting, and the township has certain lighting requirements. We do not meet those lighting requirements. The only time that we use the facility is on Wednesday evenings. We discussed that with the Historic Commission. They recommended that we not add any new lighting to the parking lot, and I think if we bring the assistant pastor up, he can indicate that people can get in and out of the building without a problem with the existing lighting, so that we are proposing or requesting relief from providing any additional lighting. We want to keep this as close to the way it was before, and that was a recommendation of the Historic Commission. I do not have any further questions of Mr. Yarrington.
Anything from the board?
No.
Okay, opening to the public. Is there anybody who would like to ask the architect questions about what the building looks like?
If you could just identify yourself again for us?
Sure. Zach Lichtman, Lichtmann. I'm on 37 Franklin Street. And we all like you guys as neighbors, so thank you. And we want to keep you and want to keep you happy. Question, architecturally speaking, what is the current capacity of individuals before this construction?
Prior to the construction?
Right.
That's a good question.
And-
Sanctuary, I have all that in my files somewhere, but maybe
Well,
ask the second
the
half
next
of your
part of this
question.
is
Yeah.
what additional capacity in terms of individuals will become of this new project, which if we stayed at the 90-something individuals and we're utilizing our parking lots without spillage into other streets, that's fine, but in 2 years, in 5 years, in 8 years, as my daughter grows up, as we all have houses in this little tiny village where, by the way, the streets, there aren't double lines on any of these streets here. If someone parks in the street and you have two cars crossing each other, that's a problem. That's a very serious problem, especially because we have kids in the neighborhood. So I would really be interested in finding out what the current capacity is and what the new capacity of this facility would be so that we can address it should daycare in the future, if you guys decide, okay, we need to leave in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, and I hope you don't. But if that changes hands and becomes a different style of church with different members and different services and activities, that needs to be thought of and addressed now.
Let me comment a little bit. Thanks. So really no change in the sanctuary in terms of that answer. There's a small proposed increase of the single classroom space in the accessory structure. They want to expand that internally within the building about 4 feet. So that might add a person or two. Under the building code, let's say the building code exit requirements. So, yeah, thank you, Chris. So right now, this accessory garage building is a finished room that was finished when they purchased the property, and would like to expand that just a little bit, create a comfortable entry vestibule, and that's a utility HVAC closet. So no real notable difference there. If we can go to the rectory building, Chris, please. First floor, thank you. So this is an area where, because these existing offices, which you would have about one, theoretically designed for one person per 100 square feet, might fit maybe 1.5 people theoretically in each, or two, we'll say round up to 2. When we convert to classrooms, it goes to 1 per 20 square feet. So instead of 1 or 2 people in an office, you might have 5 or 6 or 8 children, which are theoretically already accounted for because their parents are here, in these spaces. So no appreciable increase in quantity of people.
As far as the current services go, but in 2 years or 5 years or a different church, just trying to think of the big picture and what this means for our community down the road. That's all.
Yeah, I can't speak to the future, but the sanctuary is limited to 100 rings a bell, something like that, and that really cannot change.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, and thanks very much.
Again, Art Toto, 45 Franklin Street. I just want to get clarification with regard to the outbuilding. Are there plans to expand the outbuilding? And if so, what are they?
There are no plans to expand the outbuilding. No, just internal renovations.
Yeah, what I refer to as the garage on the property.
Yep.
Okay, so that's not part of this?
Well, nothing outside. We're going to get rid of the overhead door and put a window, and just do some interior renovations to create that entry foyer.
Okay. As an afterthought, what's the building going to be used for?
Same use as it is today. believe, a youth room, or, yeah. No change in use.
Clarify that for me, please.
What a youth room is?
Well, is it classrooms? Is that what's...
I think maybe it'd be best if
because that adjoins my property.
The question,
or butts up to my property.
the question really should be for a different witness. This is our...
I realize that's just an afterthought.
It's really where, as I mentioned before, we have separate kind of meetings for Korean and English speaking. So this room is being used for Bible studies or for young adults and teenagers together and worship or things like that. So activities, so various things.
And have you been using this room since you purchased the property? And was the room in fact set up as a gathering room or a meeting room when you purchased the property?
Yes, it was already set up as a meeting room.
So other than expanding the wall 4 feet, there are no other changes, or other activities anticipated or proposed in that room other than what's going on now and what has been going on for the last 3 years, correct?
Yes, it's same usage, just giving us a little more space.
Okay, any other questions?
So, I noticed on the paper.
Want to give us your name first? Yeah.
Okay. Still Vincent Nicotra, still 39 Franklin. So it says one of the variances is where 492 spaces are required, 40 spaces is proposed. I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit. 'Cause
Franklin Township's ordinance.
Mr. Leffert, before you do that, look at my memo, page 2.
Okay.
That cites the correct parking requirement.
Okay.
Based on the worship area, not the total square footage of the buildings.
Sorry, Mr. Healy. The municipal ordinance is based on 1 space per 15 square feet, and then the children's chapel is counted. We needed to provide floor plans for the basement. The Franklin Township ordinance requires that in calculating the parking requirements, the count should be based as if every single space on that site was occupied at the same time. So that if there were people or children that were in a sanctuary and go to a classroom, they have to be counted as bodies in one building and also in the other building. And we are required to then ask for a variance if we do not meet the parking count. The current parking that we have now on site is 40 parking spaces divided between the 2 sides of the building. We are not adding parking, we're not reducing parking. The parking is what it is, but the calculations under the zoning ordinance require us to calculate the number of all of the habitable spaces as if they are occupied. And I think Mr. Merlick has put up his existing conditions plan, which shows the parking on the property on each side of the buildings. But what we are required to do is calculate all of the habitable spaces, come up with a number, and then ask for a deviation or variance from that number. but we are not changing the number of parking spaces that are there or adding any parking spaces.
All right, let me add a little bit of clarification. The 492 space requirement cited on the plans is wrong. It's based on the amount of worship area and the amount of assembly area. When you divide those areas by 15, that's just a calculation, it comes out to 192. That's the parking requirement. They have 40. They're not proposing to change the amount of worship area or the amount of assembly area, so that technically their parking requirement per our ordinance doesn't change. It's 192 now, it'll be 192 in the future in terms of our code requirement. They have 40 spaces, and those 40 spaces will continue. So as far as the township's parking requirements, it's unchanged either way.
Okay, any other questions?
All right, well, so the gentleman's question was, is that common? I mean, it's kind of a hard question to answer. I know it might sound like a simple answer, I mean, but this is an older site. It was probably built, I mean, the church was probably built pre-cars. The parking requirement is, usually the parking requirement for a place of worship is 1 car for every 3 seats, or a certain amount of pew space. When you have open area without fixed seating, it's based on 1 for every 15 square feet. We've had a number of applicants who complain that requirement is way too high, and Mr. Lanford may provide testimony to that effect. But we commonly have parking variances for places of worship because people think the way that we calculate it results in too high of a parking standard. I hope that answers your question. Is it common? Yeah, it is a frequent variance that places of worship ask for. What I would suggest is, I think that's why I keep mentioning the fact that the worship area and the assembly area isn't changing, because as far as the parking requirement, if they were going to say double the worship area, then that would significantly increase the parking requirement, and I would think that would, perhaps even more so than what the applicant is proposing now, have the potential to bring in a lot more people onto the site. That's my opinion, and the board can weigh that in the context of the rest of the application.
I'd just like to add another comment. As this board is well aware, I've handled over the past few years numerous applications for houses of worship, and I believe in every single one of them we've had to request a parking variance because of the way Franklin Township's ordinance requires us to determine what the parking requirements are. And the other question that has often come up, obviously I think, as indicated by the assistant pastor and I guess even the observations of the neighbors, the site is functioning now. It has functioned for the last 3 years. The additions or the changes that we're proposing do not change the operations or increase people. If the parish should grow, usually what happens is they add additional services. People are not going to be able, if there's no parking, if there is insufficient parking for the parishioners, then what happens, either the parishioners don't come or extra services are added. But basically, this site is limited because of the number of seats in the worship area. You're not going to get many more people in the worship area than what are coming now. It's basically at capacity. The previous church outgrew this site and actually moved because they did get bigger and built a new church on, I believe it was Elizabeth Avenue, but again, they outgrew the site and they moved on. But I guess based on the testimony of the assistant pastor, this site can adequately handle what is going on now, what has gone on for the last 3 years, and what is anticipated to go on in the future.
My name is Robin Scudder. I live at 43 Livingston Avenue in East Millstone. My question is related to all of the conversation of use and changing of kitchens and space. There's one area, however, that is not part of the application, but I think my question is relevant. There is a full basement under the sanctuary, and that, to my knowledge, still has a full functioning kitchen in it. And that space has been used for gathering space and sometimes worship space for the last two churches that have occupied and owned the property. So that has not been brought up in any of the discussion, but I think it is relevant to the other concerns that have already been expressed. So could you make comments on that,
Sure.
please?
Thank you. Be happy to. So yes, there is, I guess I'd have to call it again, a warming kitchen in the lower level, the basement level, which is a little L-shaped counter cabinets down here with a sink, and if memory serves, and Pastor Bion, correct me, there's no cooking stove down there. There might be a microwave. Oh, okay. Yeah. You're welcome.
Any other questions?
And just with regard to just real quick, with regard to the basement, the fact that there is a worship area and assembly down there, that is included in the parking calcs.
Thank you.
Again, we'll close to the public for this witness. And are you completed with them?
With this witness, I am. I will move on to Mr. Malik.
Mr. Malik, do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
If you could state your name, spell your last name for the record, and give us your address, please.
Christopher A. Mulick, 32 Brower Lane in Hillsborough.
Mr. Malik, by whom are you employed?
Van Cleef Engineering.
And can you give the board the benefit of your educational and professional background?
Yes. So I am a licensed land surveyor and a licensed planner registered in the state of New Jersey. I've had my own land surveying and planning business for 25 years. I closed that about a year and a half ago.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. Mr. Malik, you are part of the team that prepared the plans that are before the board this evening. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you had an exhibit up on the board of the existing conditions. Can we get that exhibit back up, and then you can sort of take the board very briefly through the existing conditions so that the board can get a flavor of what's there. I'm sure the neighbors are more than aware of what's there, but take us through the property very quickly.
Okay, so basically what we have is the existing sanctuary, the rectory building in the middle, and the youth center building, the youth building in the side here. There are two parking areas on either side of the buildings. Total parking count is 40. 40 existing, and there are no new parking spaces proposed.
Okay. Now, we talked about lighting, and just for the record, can you indicate to the board what lighting is there at the present time?
Yes, so right now there are 3 lighting fixtures that I would consider like street lighting fixtures. They're basically like a Cobra head type lighting fixture. So one is in this area right here that I'm circling. There's another one up in this area, and a third one over here.
Okay, and those are the only 3 lights that we're not proposing to add any lights or change any lighting, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and actually 2 of the lights are street lights on the street.
That is correct.
They're not our lights.
Right.
And the only one that is our light is the one in the parking lot on the right side of the property as we're looking at it. Okay. Do you have a plan of the proposed renovations or addition?
Yes. So this is the proposed site plan. Again, this is the existing sanctuary, the existing rectory, and the youth building. The shaded area here is the proposed addition, which fronts Elm Street, and to the north of the addition is the walkway that connects the two parking areas. So these will be barrier-free connections to the front. Currently, there are two ADA spaces on this side closest to the sanctuary, and it is our proposal to leave those two spaces there, but we will update them to current standards.
Now, the area that we are making the addition or constructing the addition is currently grass?
It's mostly grass, but there are some walkways there that you can kind of see underneath the shaded area as I blow it up. So there's a concrete walkway, a little shed. So this is some existing impervious coverage that will be removed, obviously, to accommodate the addition.
Okay. How much additional impervious coverage are we adding with this addition?
Over to my notes. So the proposed increase in impervious cover is 954 square feet.
And some of that impervious coverage is obviously over, as you indicated, existing impervious coverage, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then in looking at the plan when we sat down the other day and reviewed it, did we discover an opportunity to actually decrease some impervious coverage?
Yes, we did. So there are some existing sidewalks, one coming up from Livingston Avenue and kind of working its way around. That sidewalk will no longer be needed. There's also a walk area in here that is no longer needed. And this walkway right here is no longer needed. So when we add up that impervious coverage, that's 366 square feet that will be removed.
Okay, so we're going to take out all of those walkways that we no longer need. They're currently shown on the plan, but they will be removed and they will be replaced by grass. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the net increase in impervious coverage then is roughly?
It's less than 600 square feet. It's 588 square feet.
Okay. Now, this plan requires us to remove some trees, does it not?
Yes, it does.
Okay, how many trees are being removed?
Let's go to that. So the existing trees are the trees that are shown here with the X's through them. So there are 3 existing trees that would have to be removed.
Okay, and are we going to plant any new trees?
We are proposing to plant one new either shade tree or evergreen tree in the front. Right now there are a number of trees in that area, and some of them are larger trees, so it is kind of a shoehorn condition there, but we feel we can get that one tree in there.
Okay. Now, also, as we indicated earlier, we were before the Environmental Commission, and they had asked us to provide some ground plantings. Did they not?
Yes, they did. So what they were looking for was some low ground cover, like periwinkle, they suggested, in this area right here, where we have this narrow strip of earth, if you will, between the building and the walk. Their feeling was that grass would have a difficult time growing there, so we agreed that periwinkle would be a good cover.
Okay, and there was also proposed on the plan already some additional landscaping on the other side of the entrance. Is that correct? If you follow that path down between.
This way? I'm not sure. I can't remember what you're.
The landscaping between on the other side of the entrance.
Oh, right here.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Yep. Yes. So currently there are landscape, basically bushes or shrubs there proposed.
Okay. And now, also, when we went to the Historic Commission, we had asked the permission to construct a sign. Is that correct?
To construct a what? I'm sorry.
Sign.
Oh, sign. Yes. Yes.
Can you indicate to the board where that sign is located?
Yes. So the proposed sign is right here along the frontage of Livingston Avenue. And we do believe that this is a good location for the sign in that it's more visible in this area because there's less vegetation to block the sign.
All right, and can you indicate to the board what the size of the sign is?
See where I have that. If I- Just want to see if we have a detail of that. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the sign is 36 inches by 48 inches, and it is a total height of 84 inches.
Okay, and it is wooden posts?
Yes, cedar posts, and the material for the sign is a PVC material that is painted and looks very much like painted wood.
And that sign is not illuminated either internally or by any floodlights of any kind? It's just a sign with no illumination, is that correct?
That is correct.
And again, the Historic Commission recommended approval of that sign, both as to the materials and location?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question with respect to the impervious coverage? Looking at Mr. Healy's report, it says 60% max permitted, 74.6 existing, 78.2 proposed. Now, you've talked about reducing some of that. Does this reflect that reduction?
No.
Okay, so there's a change then in...
Yeah, we were at 78 with all of those sidewalks. Again, we're going to take them out, which is another couple hundred square feet. We're probably going to be at 76 approximately. 76%, so there will be an increase of 2% of impervious coverage. That will also delve into one of the comments. We need to meet with the engineering department as to, because of that increase, whether there is going to be some stormwater management required for that minimal increase. If there is, we will provide it by virtue of a dry well or something of that nature to take care of that water. But with that minimal increase, we may not need it.
Question on the sign, just so we're clear. You went to the Historic Commission twice? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and I believe my memo summarizes the, I believe their comments from the first meeting. They had recommended that the sign be constructed of wood panels on wood posts with a painted finish.
And
was there a subsequent review? And
last Tuesday night, we gave them the materials, which were the PVC materials. And I don't know, did we bring them tonight? No. No, we don't have them. But we did show the material that we wanted to use, which was a PVC material, which looks like wood, will wear better, and they approved that material on Tuesday night.
Okay, and that basically is what you're presenting to the board right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Milick, have you had an opportunity to review the staff reports that were generated in conjunction with this application?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And I think we dealt with Ms. Elliott's report, which is really not in your purview anyway. There was a report from Mr. Thomas, and I believe we have addressed all of his comments. Again, the lighting, we're asking that we not provide any additional lighting. Comment number 4 on page 3.
If I could just, yeah, I think that his comment's really two parts, I believe. I mean, at the first part of it, he's basically, he thinks that you're removing some lighting with the addition. Let me just clarify what his comments are. First part, he's saying you're eliminating some lighting, so kind of replace what's being eliminated. And then his second comment is, as you indicated originally, the site doesn't come close to meeting what we normally require for a parking lot. The board may want to consider, and that obviously goes against what the Historic Commission. So at least the first part of the question, can you answer that part about whether there's existing lighting that's going to be removed or not?
No, there isn't. As a matter of fact, there's lighting on the building, which at one time the church used to keep the lights on on the building, and the neighbors asked that we not even put the lights on in the building, and we turned them off, and we don't even put those on. So we are not eliminating any lighting, we're not adding any lighting, we're leaving the lighting exactly the way it is.
And obviously, just to reiterate, I assume you agree, again, you agree with the Historic Commission's recommendation to not add additional parking lot lighting?
Wholeheartedly request that the board not...
Use your mic, Pete. Use your mic.
I'm sorry. I would request that the board not require us to add any lighting. I think it would destroy the character of the church and also the character of the neighborhood. And again, the only time that people are there in the evening is that one Wednesday night, and there's only 40 people, which is tantamount to basically 15 to 20 cars. Mr. Malik, other than the discussion we had as to whether we may or may not need any additional stormwater management, we will work that out with the engineering department. All of the other comments contained in the report we can comply with, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And all of those comments and changes are minor technical changes, and they do not in any way affect what the board is reviewing or that the neighbors are seeing, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. With respect to the report issued by Mr. Healy, I just want to go over this property has 2 front yards, correct?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and it basically has almost no building envelope because of the front yard setbacks, correct?
That's correct.
And the addition that we are constructing is basically set back in line with the sanctuary. We're not exacerbating any of the setbacks that are currently in place. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. We deliberately stepped it back so that it's behind the front line of the sanctuary.
Okay. I think we addressed the impervious, we addressed the sign.
And one of the items that Mr. Healy was asking for was a distance, confirming this distance here to the covered entryway, the portico. So I did confirm that as 19.9 is that dimension.
I think, Mr. Healy, we addressed all your comments.
Yes, you have.
Okay, and basically to the extent that we're increasing the impervious coverage by 2%, and we are, the building that we are adding or the addition is within the setback, do you feel that if the board were to grant those variances, they would in any way detrimentally affect the zone scheme or the zone plan?
That's correct. I agree with that.
And do you feel that they would have any negative impact on the adjoining properties or the neighborhood?
No, I do not believe they'll have any negative impacts.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions, Mr. Malik.
Anything from the board?
I thought I heard you say that you were only going to replace 1 tree. You're taking 3 down and only going to replace 1 tree?
Right.
Okay, Scott, did you see Scott's?
Yeah, there's a requirement, if you don't replace them, we have to contribute for the ones we don't replace.
You're going to contribute.
Which we agreed to do, yes.
Any other questions? All right, we'll open again to the public. Anyone wish to ask this witness questions on his testimony?
Robin Scudder, 43 Livingston Avenue in East Millstone. My questions do pertain to landscaping. Since the church was purchased, a very large white pine was taken from the open area on the Livingston Avenue side between the 2 existing buildings. 2 trees were taken down from the parking lots. There were a couple of Bartlett pears that met their demise during a couple of snowstorms. On the Livingston Avenue side, there are multiple trees that are no longer on this property that served as softening of structures and street trees. does appear to be adequate space to add trees in that 19-foot sort of wedge piece on the Elm Street side. I have noticed that you've got some periwinkle and maybe some shrubs between the ramps and the new structure. I don't see any suggestions of softening plantings on the other side of the ramp side. I think it's going to look very, very stark and is going to really open the Elm Street side to kind of a whole different feel and appearance. And multiple trees have gone from this piece of property over the last 3 years. So I was hoping that perhaps you could provide some more replacement, and any new trees that are added, they should be the appropriate, maybe 3-inch caliper size that will be appropriately maintained by the property owners. But I don't understand why you're saying only one tree will be replaced. And with regard to that, what is this contribution? But we don't want contributions, we'd like landscaping.
Okay. I will answer your question on contributions. Under the tree replacement ordinance, if you take down 3 trees and you only put 1 back, you have to pay for the 2 that you took down to the municipality, and they put trees someplace else. We will look at the ability to plant some additional trees. We don't have a problem doing that. I think we can work with Mr. Healy to find some appropriate locations. And again, we would rather put the trees on site than pay for them. I think that would be better. And some additional ground plantings, I think we can also accomplish that. I don't have a problem working with Mr. Healy to get that done.
And for the record, the Historic Commission had pretty much the exact same recommendation. And it's also required by the ordinance in terms of the tree replacement ordinance. So I would think that'd be an appropriate condition of the board's approval.
Okay, next question. Need a name and address.
My name is,
It's on.
my name, my name is Raymond Hills. I'm a native of East Millstone all my life. I lived on 49 Franklin Street, and my property goes all the way to the parking lot, my garage. And I'm getting back to the parking. For all the years that I've been living there, I had the Roman Catholic Church, I had the Indian Church, and I had all kind of hassles with parking. In fact, with the Indian, they would park in front of my garage.
Okay, what's the question for the witness?
The question is, we're getting back to the parking because if the membership of this church increases, we're right back to the ballpark again with this same problem that I had over the years. And not only on my property, they parked in front of different driveways and on Elm Street.
Okay, again, your comments are more appropriate in the next section where you can make a statement. You're supposed to be questioning this witness on the testimony that you heard from him. Okay, we'll close for the moment. Anything from anybody? No?
I have no further witnesses, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we will open now to the public. Say what you wish, but you will have to be sworn in. Now, if you want to say that, this is your shot.
Come back.
Anybody want to say anything?
Because
Proper time. Called procedure.
Okay, then we will close.
There he comes. My name is Raymond Hills. Mr. Hills, if I could swear you in, because you're going to provide comment rather than questions. So if you could raise your right hand for me, do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
As I said, I'm a native of East Millstone all my life. I lived on 49 Franklin Street since 1962. And between the Roman Catholic Church and the Indian Church that proceeded after the Catholic Church, we've had hassling with parking in front of my garage. parking in front of my neighbor Johnny Wolf in his yard, parking in driveways on Livingston Avenue, parking all the way down on the corner of William Street and Livingston Avenue. How many times did I bring the police down to my house to remove these cars? I can't even tell you. And this is the problem. If this membership is going to increase on this church, we're going right back in the same ballpark again. Parking on the street in front of different garages and driveways.
Have you had any trouble with this church in the
No,
park?
I have no problems with this church whatsoever. But I'm only looking for the future, what's going to happen. If the membership does increase, we only have 40-some-odd parking places there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
You got to be sworn in.
Do I say my name again first? Or
Either or.
it's still on record, right?
Yeah, you get to say it once. Yeah, the reason you identify yourself so that the person who's going to do the minutes can more easily identify who's
Sorry,
speaking.
yeah,
So,
It's Vincent Nicotra.
okay, Mr. Nicotra, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So again, you guys are great, and I think it's great that we have a community that cares so much about where we live and about the look of it and preserving the historic nature of that. So I think I just wanted to point out some things for the board for the future as well when this happens. So for East Millstone, we have, I think the population is unchanged the last 200 years. It's like, what, 300 people or something like that? And we have 4 churches in that village. So that's why when I got this in the mail today, which I would advise the lawyers in the future to get it a little sooner, and then maybe like we'd be more prepared. But when we got this in the mail today, I was, I rushed down here to see what the plan was because I didn't know if it was going to be multiple structures, like what it was going to be. So we just, want to keep that in mind that there are 4 churches so on Sunday, the parking does get kind of crazy. And again, with the attorney here, his comment on the fact that people will no longer come without parking, well, we already have people parking all the way up Franklin Street where the other church is on Franklin. So people will come, they just will park up the street. So that's something that just has to be kept in mind with East Millstone, is that there are already 4 churches. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
And
Anybody else?
I think that the look is great, the sign is great. It all looks really good, and I think you did a good job designing it and keeping with the historic nature. I'm just concerned. I just wanted to come down here and show that we do care, and that anything beyond this would be too much. That's it.
The other person.
Hello, Patricia Love, 20 Elm Street.
I could swear
For
you in,
purposes
Ms.
of
Love.
tonight.
I could swear you in.
Yeah,
Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My driveway is at 20 Elm Street, which is just up the street from the church. And Elm Street is a very narrow street. It really doesn't even allow for 2 cars to pass each other. And it used to be, years ago, when it was the Catholic Church, when I first moved into town, that on Sundays that street was only allowed to be one way. And that changed at some point along the way. I don't know when. But in my opinion, it's a safety hazard for it to not be one way on Sundays because, as the previous gentleman stated, there are 4 churches in town. I believe they're all they're all Christian, and so the Sabbath is always Sunday for all of them. So worship time is always on Sundays for all of them. And it gets very, very active on Sundays in town. And when there's traffic going against each other on Elm Street, it gets very sketchy, and a lot of near misses happening on a daily basis. So I don't know what the powers of this body are, but I think that to return to one-way on Sundays for Elm Street would be a really good idea. Any increase in the population of the church is certainly going to have an impact on traffic on Sundays. As you've heard from the other residents, we're concerned about that, especially those of us who have little children. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Hey, thank you. Any other speakers?
Over here.
Do I have to swear first, or?
You got to swear first.
Okay.
If you could raise your right
Barbara
hand.
Kissel, 33 William Street, but our side is on Livingston. It used to be John Street, so.
Okay. Do you swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks. I want to second what Patsy said earlier about the one-way, because that was really a significant positive impact on a Sunday, especially with the traffic. I also want to reiterate that we did experience a lot of disruption when the previous church was there. I had to call the police to get someone out of my driveway who argued with me that they had rented it. I said, I don't think so. And the officer told me I should put a sign up. So this is what we don't want to happen. We love you as neighbors. You have been gracious. You've invited us in. That's great. We just want to protect what we have and we've all built in this village. And we are rebuilding this village into something of an extraordinary community. And we'd like to include you, but we don't want to disrupt what we're working hard to create. That's it.
Hey, thank you.
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
other
just,
person?
Mr. Chairman, just real quick, as far as the suggestion about the one-way flow on Elm, this board can't do that. It would be the Township Council. So they'd be the group to reach out to.
If there's no other speakers, then we'll close to the public. Anything you would like to conclude with?
Very, very briefly, Mr. Chairman, I thank the board for its time and its attention this evening. We started this project well over a year ago. We've had numerous meetings with staff. We've been to the Historic Commission. My client is supported by the neighbors, is very sensitive to the neighborhood, and in designing this addition, wanted to not create a situation where the addition would be in any way offensive or out of character to the neighborhood. As you heard from the testimony, this addition is an addition out of necessity for functionality and does not result in the increase of any congregants or parishioners. There's no new added space in this addition. The classrooms are for children and not bringing any new adults. We do not intend to use this facility as a daycare center. We, quite frankly, want to keep operating the way we've operated for the last 3 years, and I think based on what the neighbors have said, the way they've operated for the last 3 years has been exemplary. The variances that we are seeking are really de minimis in nature, and we have taken every step to really minimize the impacts. I do have sympathy for the neighbors with respect to the parking, but we have basically parked ourselves as best as we can. We can't create any more parking spaces. We don't have the ability or opportunity to add any more parking spaces. And again, based on the testimony, right now we are functioning and hope to continue in the future functioning with everybody parking on the site. Lastly, I would respectfully request that the board not require us to add any additional lighting, because I think it would be counterintuitive to everything that we've discussed this evening, and I don't think it would make any of the neighbors very happy if we were to put lights in that parking lot. So I thank the board for their time and attention, and I would respectfully request that the site plan be approved and the minimal variances that we are seeking be granted.
Okay, anything from the board?
I think it's a good application. I would move to approve the application, providing the parking lot lighting relief, and also requiring that the applicant meet with Mr. Healy, discuss and come up with reasonable landscaping plan that would include additional trees and landscaping to soften the impact of the church frontage.
You want to put the no daycare condition on there? too?
Yeah, and that there be no, well, that there be no daycare, and if the applicant wishes daycare in the future, that applicant be required to come before.
They had indicated no renting of the facility. As far as the variances, they are, and approvals, they're outlined in my memo. A few clarifications. The front setback is 19.9. And I believe with the 333 square foot reduction, I come up with 76.8. So you might just want to round up to 77, but nonetheless, they testified that they're going to reduce it by the 300 square foot.
We have a second?
Second.
Laura Groundman.
Yes.
Donald Johnson.
Yes.
Bruce McCracken.
Yes.
Alan Rich.
Yes.
Robert Shepard.
Yes.
Anthony Caldwell.
Yes.
And Chairman Thomas.
Yes, good luck with it.
Thank you. And nice job, too. I agree.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second. I'm going to assume everybody votes for that.
Yep. Yeah.